I have been in a relationship with Melissa for 8 months. Initially, everything was wonderful, but she gradually started mentioning Jake, her perfect ex-boyfriend. Melissa not only compared me to him, but suggested I learn from Jake. The situation became unbearable when she gave me a list of things I should learn from Jake. What Melissa did not know was that I already had a response plan. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Leave a comment. Hit that like and subscribe button so you do not miss real-life stories like this one. Have you ever been compared to someone's ex? I met Melissa at a party hosted by our mutual friend Sam. From the moment I saw her laughing across the room, I was captivated. She had this infectious laugh and bright blue eyes that seemed to light up the entire space. That night we talked for hours about everything from our favorite movies to our most embarrassing childhood memories. By the end of the evening, I knew I wanted to see her again. Our first few dates were magical. We went to a small jazz club where the music seemed to match the rhythm of my heart whenever she smiled. I took her hiking to my favorite spot that overlooks the city, and we watched the sunset together. She took me to an art exhibition that I would have never attended on my own, but ended up thoroughly enjoying because of her passionate explanations of each piece. I work as a marketing specialist at a mid-sized firm in the city. While my job is not particularly glamorous, I enjoy the creative aspects and the challenge of developing campaigns that resonate with people. In my free time, I love playing guitar, watching indie films, and exploring new restaurants. Melissa seemed to appreciate my laid-back personality and creative interests, often complimenting me on my unique perspective and sense of humor. Those first 3 months were nothing short of amazing. We spent weekends exploring the city, meeting each other's friends, and building what I thought was a solid foundation. When she introduced me to her college friends as someone special, I felt on top of the world. We even casually mentioned future plans like attending her cousin's wedding next summer or the possibility of a road trip down the coast. I started feeling that this relationship had serious potential. Our connection felt genuine and deep. I could talk to her about anything from my dreams of someday starting my own agency to my fears about never living up to my potential. She listened in a way that made me feel truly heard, and I did the same for her. We cooked dinner together, laughed at the same stupid jokes, and could spend hours just enjoying each other's company in comfortable silence. I began to imagine a future with her in it. The first time Melissa mentioned Jake, we were having dinner at a small Italian restaurant downtown. She mentioned casually how the pasta reminded her of a dish Jake used to make. I did not think much of it at the time. It seemed like an innocent comment about an ex, something everyone does occasionally. Over the next few weeks, though, Jake's name started appearing in our conversations more frequently. When I suggested a weekend trip to the mountains, Melissa remarked that Jake once organized a surprise getaway to Aspen that was absolutely perfect. When I played her a song I had been working on for weeks, she listened politely before mentioning how Jake could play 3 instruments professionally. Even when I cooked her favorite meal, she commented that Jake had a special technique that made it better. I tried not to let it bother me. After all, everyone has a past, and I was secure enough in myself not to feel threatened by someone who was no longer in the picture, or at least that is what I told myself. The turning point came during a dinner at my apartment. Melissa spent almost 30 straight minutes describing in vivid detail a European trip Jake had planned, from the boutique hotels he had discovered to the hidden restaurants only locals knew about. As I sat there pushing food around my plate, I could not help but wonder, if Jake was so incredibly perfect, why were they no longer together? That night, after Melissa left, I called my best friend Ryan to vent. "That does not sound healthy, man," Ryan said after I explained the situation. "Constant comparisons to an ex are a major red flag. Either she is not over him, or she is trying to mold you into being him. Maybe she just needs more time to fully move on." I reasoned, not wanting to believe our relationship might be in trouble. "Just be careful," Ryan warned. "You deserve someone who appreciates you for who you are, not who they want you to become." I hung up feeling uneasy, but still hopeful that this was just a phase. Melissa was working through her past relationship, and once she fully embraced our present, the comparisons would stop. I just needed to be patient. As the weeks passed, Melissa's comparisons became more frequent and increasingly specific. What had started as occasional references transformed into constant reminders of my inadequacies compared to Jake. One evening, I decided to cook Melissa a special dinner. I spent hours preparing her favorite dish, following a recipe I had practiced several times beforehand. When she took the first bite, her reaction was not what I had hoped for. "This is good," she said with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. Jake used to add this special blend of herbs that really elevated the flavors, though. He went to culinary school for a semester, you know. I wish you could taste his version. Another time, we were getting ready to attend a friend's birthday party. I had put on a button-up shirt and jeans that I thought looked nice together. "Do you have anything else to wear?" Melissa asked, frowning at my outfit. Jake always dressed so well for these kinds of events. He knew exactly how to match colors and textures. "Maybe we should go shopping to update your wardrobe sometime." Even at social gatherings, I could not escape the shadow of perfect Jake. At my company's holiday party, Melissa pulled me aside after I had been chatting with some colleagues. "You know, Jake was amazing at networking," she whispered. "He could work a room like no one else. People were always drawn to him. Maybe try asking more questions instead of talking about yourself so much." I had not even been talking about myself. I had been discussing a project with my team members. With each comparison, my self-confidence eroded a little more. I started second-guessing everything: my clothing choices, my conversational skills, even the way I laughed. I began to feel like an actor failing an audition for the role of Jake. Despite my efforts to improve based on her feedback, nothing was ever good enough. Finally, after a particularly difficult week of constant comparisons, I decided to talk to Melissa about how I was feeling. We were sitting on my couch watching a movie when I paused it and turned to face her. "I need to talk to you about something that has been bothering me," I began carefully. "I have noticed that you often compare me to Jake. It makes me feel like I am not good enough for you." Melissa looked genuinely surprised. "I am not comparing you," she said defensively. "I am just trying to help you be your best self. If Jake did certain things well, why would not you want to learn from that?" "Because I am not Jake," I replied, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. "And I do not want to be Jake. I want to be appreciated for who I am." "You are being too sensitive," she said dismissively. "If you were more secure in yourself, you would not mind me mentioning my ex occasionally." The conversation went nowhere. Melissa could not or would not understand how her constant comparisons were affecting me. She truly believed she was helping me, which made it even more difficult to address. The tension between us grew. Small disagreements escalated into arguments more frequently. I found myself withdrawing, afraid that anything I did or said would trigger another unfavorable comparison to the amazing Jake. Just when I thought things could not get any worse, Melissa took her comparisons to a whole new level. We had been intimate earlier that evening, and rather than the post-intimacy closeness I hoped for, Melissa decided it was an appropriate time for feedback. "That was nice," she said, tracing patterns on my chest. "You know, Jake had this way of... Well, he always made sure I was completely satisfied. He read this book about tantric techniques that really made a difference. Maybe you should look into that." I felt like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water over me. Being compared in the bedroom was a new low one that cut deeper than all the previous comparisons combined. The most intimate, vulnerable aspect of our relationship was now another area where I apparently did not measure up to Jake. That night after Melissa fell asleep, I sat in the dark, scrolling through articles about obsession with an ex and unhealthy relationship patterns. Everything I read confirmed what I had been trying to deny: this was not normal or healthy behavior. The next day, I met Ryan and our friend Ashley for coffee. I needed perspective from someone who was not emotionally involved. "That is emotional abuse," Ashley said bluntly, after I explained the situation. "She is systematically undermining your self-esteem by constantly suggesting you are not as good as her ex. No one deserves that kind of treatment, Jaden. She might not even realize what she is doing, Ryan added. But intentional or not, it is toxic. So what do I do? I asked, feeling both validated in my concerns and uncertain about how to proceed. You need to decide if this relationship is worth saving, Ashley said gently. Can you imagine continuing like this? Because unless Melissa acknowledges the problem and actively works to change, this pattern will continue. I left that coffee shop with a heavy heart torn between my feelings for Melissa and the growing realization that our relationship was becoming increasingly damaging to my mental health. I loved her, but I was beginning to question whether love should hurt this much. Our 8-month anniversary arrived, and despite my growing doubts about our relationship, I wanted to make it special. I spent the day preparing a romantic dinner at my apartment, complete with candles, her favorite music, and a carefully selected wine. I wanted to believe we could move past the issues and recapture what had made us so good together in the beginning. When Melissa arrived, she seemed pleased with the effort I had made, but it did not take long for the familiar pattern to emerge. The table setting looks nice, she commented, though Jake was always so creative with presentation. He would have added some personal touches like handwritten place cards or a theme. I took a deep breath, determined not to let her comment ruin the evening. I wanted tonight to be about us and our relationship, I said, pulling out her chair. 8 months is worth celebrating. Dinner progressed with forced conversation. I could tell Melissa sensed my withdrawal, but did not understand the cause. As I served dessert, I decided to make one more attempt at addressing the issue. Melissa, it really hurts when you constantly compare me to Jake. It makes me feel like I will never be good enough for you. She put down her fork with an exasperated sigh. You are bringing this up again. I thought we discussed this. We talked, but you dismissed my feelings, I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. This is seriously affecting me and our relationship. Fine, she said, reaching into her purse. If you want to improve, I can help you. She pulled out a folded piece of paper and handed it to me. I wrote down some tips that might help you understand what I am looking for. I unfolded the paper and what I saw made my stomach drop. It was an actual typed list titled Tips from Jake. The list was comprehensive, covering everything from how I should dress. Jake always wore colors that complemented his eyes to how I should behave in social situations. Jake knew how to make everyone feel important. There were even detailed pointers about intimate matters described in a clinical way that made me feel physically ill. You cannot be serious, I whispered, looking up from the paper. You actually made a list. I thought it would be helpful, she replied defensively. You said you wanted specific feedback. I wanted you to stop comparing me to him, not give me a manual on how to become him. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. The argument that followed was explosive. In the heat of the moment, Melissa admitted something that confirmed my worst fears. Jake and I still text sometimes, she blurted out. He understands me in a way you never have. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Not only was I constantly being compared to an idealized version of her ex, but she was still in regular contact with him. How often is sometimes, I demanded. That is not the point, she deflected. The point is that you are being unreasonable about all this. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. I need some space. I cannot talk about this right now. You are overreacting, she called after me, but I was already closing the door behind me. I drove around aimlessly for hours that night, replaying our entire relationship in my mind. Every memory was now tainted by the shadow of Jake. How many times had she been texting him when she was with me? How often had she been wishing I was him instead? By the time the sun rose, I had made my decision. I could not continue in a relationship where I was constantly made to feel like a disappointing substitute. No matter how much I cared for Melissa, the relationship had become toxic, and I needed to end it. But as I sat in my car watching the sunrise, a thought occurred to me. Melissa had spent months telling me how perfect Jake was, including how perfectly he had apparently done everything in their relationship. I found myself wondering, how had he ended things with her? Over the next few days, I maintained minimal contact with Melissa, telling her I still needed space to think. Meanwhile, I reached out to Sam, our mutual friend, who had known both Melissa and Jake during their relationship. Yeah, they dated for about a year, Sam confirmed when we met for a drink. Jake ended things at Luigi's, that Italian place she loves. Very public, but very controlled, typical Jake style. He was always about appearances. What exactly did he say? I pressed. Sam shrugged. Something about how they had grown apart and wanted different things. Standard breakup lines, but delivered like he was accepting an award. Then he just disappeared from her life completely. Blocked her on everything. Cold, but clean. And how did she take it? Hard, Sam admitted. She was obsessed with getting him back for months. Kept saying he was the one who got away, that they were perfect together. As Sam spoke, a plan began forming in my mind. It was petty, perhaps even cruel. But after months of being compared to Jake, being made to feel inadequate at every turn, I wanted Melissa to understand how it felt to be on the receiving end of such treatment. I would end our relationship exactly as Jake had ended his with her. The idea solidified as I discussed it with Ryan and Ashley. Ryan thought it was poetic justice, while Ashley had reservations but understood my motivation. Just be sure this is about finding closure, not revenge, she cautioned. You want to end this chapter of your life, not carry bitterness forward. Meanwhile, Melissa had been calling and texting constantly, alternating between apologies and accusations that I was being childish by not responding. I remained largely silent, engaging only enough to let her know I was still considering our future. In truth, I was preparing for our final encounter, gathering my courage and conviction. I deserved better than to be someone's consolation prize, their project to mold into the image of someone else. With each passing day, my resolve strengthened. It was time to stand up for myself. A week after our disastrous anniversary dinner, I texted Melissa asking if she would meet me at Luigi's Italian restaurant at 7 p.m. that Friday. She responded immediately, clearly, relieved that I was finally reaching out. Looking forward to seeing you, she wrote. I have missed you so much. I made a reservation for a table in the center of the restaurant, just as Sam had described Jake doing. I arrived early, dressed in an outfit that I knew Melissa would approve of, one that she had once said reminded her of something Jake would wear. The irony was not lost on me. When Melissa arrived, her face lit up upon seeing me. She looked beautiful in a blue dress I had always admired on her, and for a brief moment I questioned what I was about to do. Then I remembered the list she had given me, the countless comparisons, and my resolve returned. You look amazing, she said, leaning in to kiss me. I returned the kiss briefly but pulled away before it deepened. Thanks. You look nice too. Throughout the appetizer and main course, Melissa was animated and engaging clearly, making an effort to reconnect. She apologized again for the list, insisting she had only wanted to help me be my best self. I know I can be critical sometimes, she admitted, reaching for my hand across the table. But I really do care about you, Jaden. I promise I will stop bringing up Jake so much. It was insensitive of me. I listened and nodded, maintaining a pleasant but slightly detached demeanor. I let her talk about how we could move forward, about plans for the upcoming months, all while knowing that in a few minutes I would bring it all crashing down. As the server cleared our plates and asked about dessert, I knew the moment had arrived. I ordered tiramisu for both of us, remembering that this was also part of Jake's breakup ritual, according to Sam. While waiting for dessert, I took a deep breath and looked directly into Melissa's eyes. Melissa, I have been doing a lot of thinking during our time apart. I began using almost the exact words Sam had told me Jake used. We have had some wonderful times together, but I feel like we have grown apart and want different things. Her smile faltered. What do you mean? I mean that I think our relationship has run its course. I continued, maintaining steady eye contact. You deserve someone who can be what you need, and I am not that person. The color drained from her face as recognition dawned in her eyes. These are the exact words Jake used when he broke up with me. In this same restaurant. I did not deny it. How does it feel to be on the receiving end of a comparison? You are breaking up with me like this. Her voice trembled between shock and anger. As some kind of twisted revenge, I am breaking up with you because I deserve someone who values me for who I am, not who they wish I could be. I replied calmly. The method is just to help you understand how it feels to be constantly reminded of someone else. The tiramisu arrived, but neither of us touched it. Tears welled in Melissa's eyes, but I steeled myself against the guilt that threatened to weaken my resolve. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I know, I replied. But you did repeatedly, even after I told you how it made me feel. I placed enough cash on the table to cover our meal, plus a generous tip, then stood up. Goodbye, Melissa. I wish you the best in finding what you are looking for. Without waiting for a response, I walked out of the restaurant, not looking back even as I heard her call my name. Outside, the cool evening air hit my face, and with it came a mixture of emotions, a chaotic blend of sadness, relief, and a strange sense of liberation. I had done it. I had stood up for myself in a way I never had before. As I drove home, my phone buzzed continuously with calls and messages from Melissa, but following Jake's example to the letter, I did not respond. When I got home, I blocked her number and removed her from all my social media accounts. It was a clean break, just as Jake had done. The next morning, Melissa showed up at my apartment, eyes red from crying. I almost did not answer, but decided I owed it to both of us to have one final conversation. How could you do that to me? She demanded, as soon as I opened the door. Using Jake's breakup against me was cruel. It was not about cruelty, I replied, leaning against the doorframe, but not inviting her in. It was about helping you understand how it feels to be constantly compared to someone else. For 8 months, I lived in Jake's shadow. Every time you compared me to him, every time you suggested I be more like him, it chipped away at my self-worth. I never meant it that way, she insisted, tears flowing freely. I just wanted to help you. No, Melissa. You wanted to recreate what you had with Jake. And I deserve better than to be someone's second-choice replacement. She broke down completely, then admitting through sobs that she had never fully gotten over Jake. I thought if I could make you more like him, I could have the best of both worlds. Someone who was available and cared about me, but with all the qualities I loved about him. Her honesty was both painful and validating. At least now at the end, we could acknowledge the truth. I am sorry, she said finally, wiping her tears. I did not realize what I was doing to you. I am sorry too, I replied sincerely. Sorry that we both wasted time in a relationship that was not right for either of us. After Melissa left, our mutual friends inevitably took sides. Some thought my breakup method was justified after months of emotional manipulation, while others believed I had been unnecessarily harsh. Sam revealed that Melissa had been devastated when Jake ended things, and I had reopened that wound deliberately. I did not argue with any of them. Everyone was entitled to their perspective, and I was at peace with my decision, even if the execution had been admittedly dramatic. About a month later, Ryan mentioned that Melissa had apparently reached out to Jake after our breakup, hoping to reconnect. He had declined, having moved on with someone new. There was a certain poetic justice in that, though I took no pleasure in her continued hurt. In the weeks and months that followed, I focused on rebuilding my confidence and rediscovering who I was outside of Melissa's expectations. I joined a local photography class I had always been interested in but had never pursued. I reconnected with friends I had seen less of during my relationship. I even started playing guitar again, something I had done less frequently after Melissa mentioned Jake's superior musical abilities. The healing process was not linear. There were days when I questioned my decision or missed Melissa despite everything. But gradually, I began to feel more like myself again, the version of me that existed before I started trying to mold myself into someone else's image. 6 months after the breakup, I met Amanda at a friend's barbecue. She was refreshingly direct, wickedly funny, and most importantly showed interest in getting to know me for who I actually was. On our third date, she asked me about my ex, and I shared the story openly. "Well, I think Jake sounds like a pretentious jerk, and Melissa missed out on someone genuine," was her simple response. "For what it is worth, I like you exactly as you are." That moment crystallized the most important lesson I had learned from my relationship with Melissa. True connection comes from acceptance, not comparison. We all deserve someone who sees us clearly and loves what they see, not someone who looks at us and wishes we were someone else. I do not regret my time with Melissa, despite how it ended. That relationship taught me to value myself and to establish boundaries. It showed me that sometimes walking away is the strongest choice you can make. Most importantly, it prepared me to recognize and appreciate authentic connection when it finally came my way. Sometimes you have to learn to love yourself first, before you can find someone who truly loves you for who you are, not as a copy of someone else. Have you ever found yourself constantly compared to someone else in a relationship? How did you handle it? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and share this video with someone who might need to hear this message. Remember, you deserve someone who appreciates you exactly as you are. Thank you for listening, and I wish you relationships built on genuine appreciation and respect.